Last year, in February, a man passed away at the ripe old age of 99 years old, Harry D. Schultz. Schultz was known for many things, writing an investment newspaper for 45 years, being the highest paid financial advisor on earth at a rate of $2,000 an hour, and his fierce advocacy for a return to the gold standard. He was a big deal in the sphere of the world that thinks more in dollar signs than in bread, but you probably haven't heard of him if you're a normal person. If you live in the Bahamas, Tonga, or any other number of island nations, it's likely you or your parents felt the effects of this man's ambition, though. Alongside two others, Michael Oliver and James McKeever, Schultz ran an underground movement for rich elites to set up their own libertarian paradises across the globe in specific microstates, targeting recently independent nations with insidious propaganda to try and sway racial discord in order to achieve their goals of a libertarian white ethno-state. It's an evil goal, flat out, and it would be a dour history to recount if every single one of them didn't fail spectacularly. This is the story of the Phoenix Foundation. Not much is known about how Oliver, McKeever, and Schultz initially met and established the Phoenix Foundation. Documentation on this group is very poorly archived, so I can only assume they met at Dave & Buster's and started planning how to make their gangsta's paradise there. The goal was an island nation with no laws whatsoever, and especially no taxes, populated by rich people who would pay a fee to set up shop there. I should note that despite being one of the three amigos, at no point did Schultz ever give them anything for free. Every coffee shop meeting was $2,000 an hour, and I think that's really poetic that in the quest for the libertarian paradise, the libertarians were getting fleeced by their own ideals. The first idea was simple. A puppet company was set up named the Ocean Life Research Foundation, which began making plans to construct an artificial island on the Minerva reefs of Tonga. On the surface, they didn't do anything. It wasn't like they set up research bases or did anything to hide behind, they just made a puppet company and forgot to put a puppet on it. No communication was made between the company and the government of Tonga because Oliver, the ringleader of the Phoenix Foundation, at the time believed that the Tongan government would simply deal with it. He was absolutely certain that Tongans would move in to perform manual labor for them, even if, by the account of a Tongan who was there when it happened, everyone in Tonga hated them. In 1971, someone claiming to be an ambassador of the Republic of Minerva appears in Tonga and tries to gain audience with the king. He is denied and sent home to Las Vegas. Anyway, Oliver continues with his plans to make Rapture under the legal justification that unclaimed land can be claimed by anyone if it is put to some use. This isn't a thing. That's not real, and Schultz cashed a bigger paycheck than I'll ever see in my life for giving that advice to him. Oliver began illegally constructing his island, and right after his declaration of independence, before anyone had moved in, the Tongan king and a crew of about 100 people, including a full brass band for whatever reason, went to the islands, dropped a Tongan flag, burned the Minervan flag, and went back home. It was proclaimed that the islands now belonged unanimously to Tonga, and the entire international community agreed. I don't think Oliver ever gave refunds to the 1,000 or so rich Kickstarter backers who had already bought citizenship. A group of them would attempt, 10 years later, to retake the islands, which had been mostly reclaimed by the sea at this point, but in the face of actual soldiers with actual guns, backed down pretty handily. Over in the Bahamas, the country had very recently received independence from Great Britain, and having lost their bid for a state in Tonga the year prior, the Phoenix Foundation created a political party in the newly established state called the Abaco Independence Movement. The group wanted white settlers that were in the Bahamas at the time of its independence to get their own state on the Abaco Islands. Being blatantly racist, this party proceeded to lose elections like no one has ever lost before. Who would have thunk? This wasn't the end, though. See, the move for an independent Abaco wasn't something that the Phoenix Foundation had invented. It had been going since before the Bahamas were independent at all, with some islanders having legitimate claims for separatism that were immediately abused by rich white guys wanting a beachfront tax haven. Since the movement had functionally been shot in the head by this act, the Phoenix Foundation began funding insurgencies to overthrow the government of Abaco and declare independence, or better yet, let it go back to Britain. It's a wonder this movement didn't garner support the year after independence, right? Hey, we know you just fought for decades to not be slaves under the British Empire, but what if we just slid right back in there? The plot to overthrow the government was uncovered and swiftly crushed, and while the Abaco independence movement claimed no allegiance with the insurgency, the receipts showed otherwise, and the movement died soon after, sending Oliver, Schultz, and McKeever back to the drawing board. This is Jimmy Stevens, known as Moses to his followers. You thought it wasn't a cult video. Bam! Double whammy. Nah, he's not a religious leader, but he is a nut job and joined with the Phoenix Foundation after their failure to secure an independent Abaco for white boys. The island nation of Vanuatu, once known as the New Hebrides, is a nation that, like pretty much every other state in Oceania, was abused for profit as a colony before gaining independence in the late 1900s. The Nagriamel Party was a right-wing political party that didn't have a centralized objective until Jimmy Stevens entered the picture as an arms dealer to the island chiefs that supported the party, and subsequently became a major player in its politics. Stevens, funded by French anti-independence factions, joined with the Phoenix Foundation to promote the goal of staying a British colony and becoming a tax haven, while also giving all land not used for agriculture back to the islanders. Kind of an it's okay to punch me in the face if you give me some ointment after ideology. This anti-independence movement was a drop in the bucket compared to the growing push for a Vanuatuan state, however, so with 5 years of lobbying amounting to nothing, Stevens and the Foundation pushed for something drastic on the night of the Vanuatu Declaration of Independence. The Anti-Independence Party declared independence from the state that was declaring independence by asserting that the island of Espiritu Santo was now the Republic of Minerva. They set up blockades, took over the airport, and held out. Now, foreign newspapers were eating this up, and they were referring to the incoming clash as the Coconut War. The forces of Vanuatu asked the government of Papua New Guinea for help, and soldiers were sent into the barricaded and heavily armed Espiritu Santo. Thing is, everyone was chill except for the Phoenix Foundation's goons. Despite being an arms dealer, Stevens' weapons for this confrontation were some bows and slingshots compared to, guns and bombs. While the islanders played hopscotch with the soldiers, the only notable death was when a Papuan roadblock was smashed through by Stevens' son driving a jalopy and he got promptly ventilated. Stevens was arrested and sentenced to 14 years behind bars, the Phoenix Foundation was implicated in the war, and the rich land magnates suffered no consequences beyond the slow erosion of goodwill. The Phoenix Foundation slowly fades out of public consciousness after this incident. 3 failed attempts to create a libertarian utopia does not give the upper crust much confidence in your abilities, and with less people willing to pay down payments for stolen land, their ambitions grew less and less grand until the Foundation seemingly faded away entirely. It's not entirely without success, though. You don't need me to tell you that several island nations, including Vanuatu, operate as tax havens, and the Phoenix Foundation can pretty easily be blamed for planting those seeds alongside those who share the ideology. All in all, the story of the Phoenix Foundation to me shows that even with everything on their side, including cash and people and influence and all that jazz, libertarians will always manage to fuck their shit up all on their own. So the next time you see someone with a Gadsden flag bumper sticker cut across 4 lanes without signaling, just think of how they're bringing the legacy of the Phoenix Foundation to the modern day with a Coors Light in the cup holder. This is the ending commentary segment. Hello, I have a new project in the works that I think you guys will enjoy. It will be on a specific location in the Tennessee road trip video that I'm working on. That video is still at least a few months out. But this one, we have encountered a location that we feel deserves its own video, so I think we're gonna go look at that in the next one. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, hope you enjoy.